Okay, so we're going to be talking about focusing on what matters. And in today's world, I felt like this was timely because there's a tremendous amount of distraction and volatility that is occurring around us. And it's only going to be worse as we go through the year here. It's not going to get much better, or at least that's what I'm perceiving. You may see something different. Maybe you think it's getting better. But for me, I just feel like there's going to be a tremendous amount of volatility this year. There's going to be a lot of distraction out there. And one of the hardest things for an entrepreneur to be able to do is to focus. When we see shiny objects or we see opportunities, there's a tremendous amount out there that can pull on our attention. I've got one guy in chief executive boards, and I don't know if he's on here or not, but who gets about 400 emails a day. I have a lady that's in the group as well, who I know she gets well over 500 emails a day. I don't know how in the world you can focus on something if that is if that is the case. I mean, it's difficult enough to be able to you know move the needle, get things done without spending time trying to get through 500, 400 emails a day. So let's just kind of progress here for just a second. I'm going to move us over to the next slide here, and wanted to share with you, according to Career Builder, employers that were surveyed noted that the most common distractions at work, these were the top 10 most common workplace distractions: cell phones, internet browsing, gossip by the water cooler, browsing social media, email. Notice email is on here. Email is listed as a distraction. How many of you have that little pop-up notice on your computer that every time you get an email, it notifies you? And then you might be in the middle of something. Yeah. And then you have to run over immediately and check your email. That is the most inefficient way to work. So notice that's one of the top distractions. Conversations with coworkers. I used to have a guy, and this was a guy that had a higher level job title than I did. He had a horrible habit of just coming and planting himself in my office and wanting to consume an hour or two of my time just gossiping or just talking about different things that had no relevance whatsoever. And I finally had to get to the point where I had to start using some of Scott Carr's tactics and asking him, hey, are we addressing a problem here? Do you need a decision? Do you need my assistance with something, or having to get up and excuse myself just to get this guy out of my office? Meetings. Boy, there is a quote at the end here that I'm going to share with you that I picked up here recently that talks about meetings. Smoking is becoming taboo more and more, so we don't see quite as much of people taking smoke breaks as we used to. I don't know how many of you guys remember the days of, I can remember being in common offices where people, would smoke in the office. You don't see that much anymore unless you're at Reynolds America or someplace like that where they make cigarettes, but people taking smoke breaks or snack breaks, and so there's a lot of common distractions out there today that can sort of help us to be unproductive or not really focus. So how do you determine where you spend your time and energy? Do you spend, say, 30, 50, 65% of your day at work, maybe 10% on you or and your family, maybe 5% for exercise, rest, and recovery? If you had to calculate this, what would your answer be? How much time are you spending at work? One of the people on this call that I know that has a really good handle on this, that really prioritizes this, Andy Loff. I know he's on the on the session here, but you do a really good job, I think, of compartmentalizing this and spending the appropriate amount of time at work and with family and on yourself. And but if I had to ask most people on this call here, how do you actually prioritize this? If you had to place a percentage in each of these pies, what would you actually place in there? I used to be one of those people that would put, 60, 70% in the work category or the work slice. And that is not healthy. It's not the most productive way, and it's not a healthy way to utilize your focus and your time. So I want to encourage you, just go draw your own pie chart and place family, self, and work in there, and just calculate how much time or estimate how much time you think you spend in each of those categories. If you're spending in excess of about 40 to 50% of your time in work, that you may want to take a look at that. That could be a possible issue. Okay, because there's other areas that demand or require some of your time. So how many of you have ever seen the old time management matrix? If you've ever used this before, some people use this to help prioritize and sort through how and what you'll focus on throughout the day. There's so many opportunities to distract us from being productive that not only can the days pass by without making progress, but whole weeks and months and years can surpass us without even knowing, that it happened. How many of you look back on a week and ask, what did I get done this week? I can recall days of walking in and my wife asking me, Kevin, what did you get done today? What did you do today? And it seemed like the day was just a blur because I was going back and forth between emails or one distraction or somebody pulling me into a meeting or a telephone call that I didn't anticipate. And I didn't actually move the needle because I wasn't getting things done. So, that's what's called being an amateur. If you operate throughout the day that way, that's what's called being an amateur. And no one wants to live like an amateur. And so later on, I'm going to share a couple of things that I've learned along the way. But at this point in time, what I want to do is I'm going to go back to stop sharing that presentation with you and come back on and I'd like to just open this up for dialogue and see, if any of you have any tips or things that you do or use to help you to focus throughout the day, to help you to move the needle, to help you to be productive. And so I will just, I'm just going to open it up. If there's someone that would like to weigh in at this point, someone who does a really good job at this, I know is Andy. Andy, if you have any thoughts on this or any tips or tricks that you'd like to share, please feel free to open up and share them.
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. I just prioritize what I want to be doing. So I think, for me, that's family and relationship more than work. So when it comes to the decision point where you have to leave something on the table at work, I leave it on the table. It's really pretty simple. Like, you do what is most important to you. I mean, most people are pretty selfish in that regard. So if work's the most important to you, that's what you're going to end up doing. But for me, it's always been pretty simple. I've set rules in the past where I would 5 o'clock, I always left, no matter what was going on. So if there was some, there might be a once a year exception to that, but for the most part, if there is a lot of stuff going on, I just leave it, and it's going to be there the next day. So setting those boundaries on the time is probably the big thing for me. I also am not a big fan of people just showing up in my office and things like that, because I know I have to get out of there. So I'm usually pretty mean to people if they're invading that time. So that just people learn that they just don't do that typically over time. So that's kind of some of my.
Hey, Scott Carr, you have, I know you use a technique when people come in to interrupt your time sometimes. What is that? Or do you have some tips that you use?
Yeah, a couple of things I would say. One, I'm probably not as good as Andy on the parts outside of work, but inside of work, one of the things I do on the quarterly basis, make sure I define what my big rocks are. Three or four, the big rocks, things that I need to move forward, by the end of a quarter. And I break those down using the OKR system. I'll break those down into key results, and I keep it on my desk, and I try to look at it every day and make sure that a good portion of my day was actually on those things that were most important to me to move forward, because that's usually what gets me. So that's something I would share. Regarding people coming into my office, repeat offenders, one of the things I always do when they step into the office, we don't have a meeting, so I immediately get up and I walk towards the door, face to face at the door with them. So that within a few seconds, I can decide whether I'm going to the bathroom, going to get coffee, whatever, to avoid the person who just wants stuff to interview. But I will, when they ask me, do I have time, I always say, depends on the subject. And then once they lay out the subject, I'll decide whether. But the repeat offenders, standing up and walking toward them usually takes them off guard. And they very quickly, if it's not important, they'll turn around. Oh, it's not really important. They assume you have somewhere to go. So I highly recommend that.
Okay. I've picked up some of those tips from you, Scott. And it's amazing when you use that, you can get people to focus and not waste your time. And so
another thing I would say there, Kevin, is I also never allow someone to actually walk in and take a seat before we've agreed. The only time I would do that is when it's really about them. They're a wreck, they're upset, something like that. Assume they can, without needing to pull out a chair and sit down and then talk. They need to qualify before we get there.
fantastic. Anybody else have any tips that you're using to help focus your time?
This is Tim. I use Trello as it's a software. Basically, it's keeping lists. So I have a list, and every morning I review that list. And as Andy said, kind of put the top things that I'm going to work on and need to do. Or I think Scott was saying a similar thing. Pick those 3 things that I need to get done that day. Anything else just goes on the list and gets prioritized. I don't really pick past the 3 that I'm going to try to get done that day and make sure that those are my priorities every morning. The other thing that I do, because I'm one of those ones that gets about 400 emails, so I have a regiment of in the morning. First thing I do is I look through the emails and I bucketize those by ones that come from internal within the company, go into a certain folder. I review those first, but because I get so many, I'm really just kind of buzzing down through the subject lines. And if it really doesn't, really draw my attention in and need attention, I will, I'll just read those that are most important, and I have to just kind of push all the others to the side. I keep them, but I don't do them unless somebody comes back to me. I mean, it does cause me to miss some, but I also tell people that email is not the best way to contact me, just because I'm going to do that at the thing. I will also review them at lunchtime, and then I'll review them at the end of the day. So those are the only 3 times I open my email. And now people know that that's the case. So, you know, if you really need something urgent from me, it's not going to come from an email. Or you shouldn't put it in an email if it's that urgent. So those are kind of some of the things that I do to just, you know, keep those distractions down.
Tim, can you ever actually read 400 emails a day?
No, like I said, I buzz through the subject lines if the subject line is something that I, you know, and a lot of them, of course, everybody keeps the threads, you know, so if there's an email that actually, you know, I look at in terms of you know, those headlines kind of thing, and you know, I'll start to see, and even some of those, if I dive in and look at them, if I realize, you know, real quickly that it's not, you know, that I don't need to be involved in it, I have to let those go. I mean, it was a hard thing to do at first because I used to always be, you know, like every piece of information. One of the other practices that I've started now is also in meetings, is participating that I'm going to be there at either the beginning or the end of the meeting. I'm not going to be there for the entire meeting, depending on the people that want the meeting with me. It's, you know, it's kind of already have your list of things that you need me to address, and you can either, you know, go through the meeting and I'll be there for the last 15 minutes of it to address those, or if you want me to start out the meeting with trying to address some things to set the, you know, the foundation of the meeting. But myself actually participating in meetings, I've tried to really reduce the amount of meetings that I'm tied up in, because that was one of the big things for me, was just, you know, my whole day was nothing but meetings. And now I've done that. At least gives me, for the most part, because most meetings are an hour, it gives me 45 minutes either on the front or the back end that I have an opening to do other things.
Meetings can consume a lot of our time throughout the day. And boy, do I have a tip on that one as we get a little further along into the discussion here. Any other tips anyone cares to share?
And I've got one. I have, in a former life, I used to manage not only my work schedule, but my personal life, like within Outlook. I was an Outlook junkie, to the point where I started using it to block out time for appointments with myself. So it's like I treated, you know, I'd put in there an hour block of time or 30-minute block of time that I have to be intentional about focusing on something specific that I know I need to get done, but I know if I don't write it down, it's not going to happen. And for some reason, with it being on my calendar, I treat it as if that's a meeting that I have to be at, even though I'm the only one that shows up to it. And it kind of secures that time, if you will, to do what you need to do. And when somebody comes in my office during that time, I have to hold up my hand like this, because I don't have a door on my office, but you know, I have to kind of like, hold, not now, just a second, you know, because I'm in a meeting with myself.
That's an excellent trick. I do that as well. I'll block out time on my calendar and it says blocked out. And it's time to be strategic or time to think. And we don't ever actually typically give ourselves that time or allow ourselves that time. If you use block time management in your calendar, I would encourage you. That's a great tip, David, to block out that time for yourself, because you need that time to be strategic as opposed to tactical or reactionary. How many of you block out time for exercise? How many of you block out time for, you know, time with your family, or time, you know, date night? Or I put all those personal things on my calendar as well. And the nice thing about it is that you can hit private on there. Nobody has to see it but you as well. But yeah, that's a wonderful trick, David, to make sure that you do set aside that time for yourself.
Kevin, I take off Wednesday. I stay at home Wednesday mornings and I work on a business and that's it. No interruptions, no nothing. And that really works for me.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to Kevin, again, one thing on the calendar blocking, one thing I also try to do is decide whether a topic or something I'm gonna work on is interruptible work or uninterruptible work, focused work. And then I'm very rigid about the door, I close my door then. And if my door's closed and I'm working on something, because I'll totally lose track if someone interrupts me. But then immediately if I'm doing interruptible work, I'll try to get that door back open.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful.
I used to do that, Scott, with contracts. I used to have to read big, thick contracts. And, when you're constantly getting interrupted, it's hard to read something that you really have to focus on like that. So I would do the same thing. I'd close my door, give myself, hour and a half or so to read through a large contract because I just couldn't focus with constant interruptions like that. So that's another great tip, another wonderful trick. Any others out there?
So I'm an early morning guy. I'm usually in the office at 6. I try to get out of here between 3 and 3:30. That's my typical day. So my time from 6 o'clock till about 8 are the 2 hours that I do 90% of my tasks that need to be accomplished for the day. I'm kind of a control freak, which I think a lot of us may or may not be. But I found myself needing to reply to customers immediately. And over the last couple of years, I just start replying. I'll have an answer for you by Friday. I'll have an answer for you. And I give myself a 3-day window or a 2-day window based on the importance of that request. Or I delegate it to engineering or the people who need to take care of it versus me doing it personally. So for me, that first time in the morning lets me review my list, confirm I got all my A items taken care of and whatever B items, and then reset the list again for the next day.
One thing that I've, and if I'm speaking out of turn here, but one thing that I discovered, or I don't know, this used to happen to me a lot, was when I would get emails, it would create anxiety. And the anxiety would be that I needed to answer them right away, or that I needed to respond to them right away. And that's not what email, it took me a while to figure out that's not what email is for. A chat box maybe, or if you're texting back and forth or something like that, then maybe a more immediate response might be justified or required. But just because we receive an email doesn't necessarily mean that it requires an immediate response. And so I had to train myself not to get anxious about emails coming in and feeling the need to be distracted away from the work that I was doing to go respond immediately to those emails, and not let it create that anxiety in me to feel that way. So that was a tough one to get past, but yeah, I mean, it took a while to figure that out and to actually carve out and block time to actually do that. So before I move over to some tips and tricks that I've kind of picked up along the way, are there any others out there? Anybody else want to weigh in on some things that you might have picked up along the way, or tips that you use? Dan, I just saw you come off of mute. What have you learned?
So I'm by no means an expert at this. I'm more learning than giving advice here. But the one thing when it comes to emails, and I've had the same email address for 17 or 18 years, so I get just a massive amount every day. I do not respond if it does not require my input. I will, unless it's something I absolutely have to weigh in on, I'll read it, but I'm not going to respond to it.
Okay.
That makes it a little more manageable.
I'm going to suggest too that if we're getting 300 to 400 or 500 emails in a day, maybe take some of that strategic time to strengthen our filters, or to maybe hit unsubscribe on some of these, or to help train some of the people on not copying us on every piece of communication. That's just totally unmanageable. There's no way that we can get through that many emails in a day. Any others? Any other? Yes, Brad.
I'm still in recovery, but a few things that are working well for me. 4 or 5 months ago, I think when you download a lot of apps on your cell phone, the notifications are automatically turned on. I have my phone almost 24/7 on vibrate. Phone calls vibrate through and the screen lights up. Just about every other app or thing, notifications are turned off. So I have to proactively go into email. I have to proactively go into text. I proactively any of the crap notifications on social media. I see them when I get in there. So that has helped greatly. The other thing is similar to having an email address for many, many, many years, of which I've commingled my personal life and business life with. The same holds true for my cell phone. And more often than not, if a call rings in and they're not in my contact list, i.e. I don't know who they are, I don't answer it. They roll straight to voicemail. So, and when I get voicemail and I find that I want to know proactively what that call is when it's coming in, I stick them in my contact list.
Yeah, and along with that too, Brad, one of the things that you can also do too is I do the same thing. I don't if I don't recognize the phone number or the name, I don't take the call. And if it's important enough, they'll leave a voice message. If they don't leave a message, then I go in and block the caller. Now, I may inadvertently block somebody that, but I can tell you about 90% of them are spam. So turning your notifications off on your phone is a pro trick. That is yes, Steve.
Just on the on email, I've been on a lifelong rant that basically email sucks for most communication things, with the exception of maybe transmitting files or listing data. So coupling that internally here, I've lately been on a crusade to make everyone in the company, when they're sending an email, the obvious one of don't copy all on everything, but segregate there's a difference between you sending an email to someone because you need them to do something or specifically they need to know something versus a carbon copy where, hey, just keeping others advised. So from a time perspective, and I get the same, I don't know how many hundreds daily, but if I look at something and I'm CC'd as opposed to it being sent to me, those are real easy to set aside, and maybe I get to them, maybe I don't. It's just the people internally anyway know that if they need me, it's got to be sent to me. That cuts out probably 100 emails a day that I have to read.
Very good.
I do that one. I don't know if you'll mix anything up. I absolutely do that one. And I actually train people to give presentations on email and tell them that if you're on the to line, there's an action. Someone expects you to do something. Do not typically don't put more than one person on the to line. If there's more people on the to line, you're actually expecting actions from all of them. And CCs don't require a response. The other thing is you have an access to an assistant. When I get a couple hundred or so a day. If you sit down with the assistant once a week or something and talk about my priorities and get code all the emails, urgent and important, gets the red, important but not urgent, not important and not urgent, gets next weekend, and then others are just like, I'm really disciplined and just job. That's helpful. Someone can do that. If you have that.
Thank you.
I was going to say, one other thing I do with emails is I try not to reply through email either. Meaning that if it is of importance and everything, that's, because otherwise it just becomes another thread you have to manage. So one of the things I do is I'll actually just note down and make a call, because a lot of times you can cut out 100 emails just by making a call, because otherwise it'll be a back and forth and it becomes a whole communication stream. And again, because I don't use email that way, I just, I mean, unless it's something that I know is going to be a complete, once I answer, it's a dead end, then I typically try not to reply back to emails, which actually helps not move the thread along.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears here and share a screen with you again. Just got a text message here, but it's hard to hear Scott. Hey, Scott Carr, you're breaking in and out as you're talking, but just wanted to let you know. But I'm going to share a screen with you. I'm going to stop my video real quick, and I'm going to share a screen with you, and we're going to walk through a couple of things that I've kind of learned along the way. And I listen, guys, you can, or feel free to use these if you wish, but if you feel like any of this is helpful to you. But there's about 7 or 8 little tips here that I wanted to just share with you that I've come across that's been very helpful to me. And so the first one is, this is sort of like management by exception instead of trying to manage everything. Basically, ignore all the things that don't matter. And there's a lot of things that don't matter. We tend to think of everything mattering, or that it does, that we have to attend to it, but we don't. So by weeding out all the things that don't matter, we can truly focus on that which does. And if you spend your life focusing on what truly does matter, then you'll never really benefit from that which does. So there's so much noise and distraction in the world, and we have to allow ourselves the privilege to let some things go, just fall through the cracks even. And instead of thinking that we have to have or do it all. This is, in my opinion, this is probably the number one reason why most entrepreneurs or business leaders can't scale, is because they feel like they have to have their hands in everything, or they can't focus on what truly matters, including the things outside of their business. Have you really prioritized what matters? There's a saying that I picked up out of a book, and I'll share that resource with you here at the end. I asked myself, does it fall into the category of being a hell yes? Because if it's not a hell yes, if I'm not that enthusiastic about it, then it's a hell no. Okay, it falls into it. It has to be that drastic. Is it something that is that drastic that I want to dedicate my time on? The next tip is, set 3 important tasks. Your to-do list, it may be a mile long, but that doesn't mean that you can't be selective about what you're going to accomplish today. I want to encourage you, make a point to set aside 3 important and or time-sensitive tasks to complete each and every day. The task can be from different or similar areas of your life. For example, you might choose to include 1 work-related, 1 personal, and 1 household task for your list. Or you might decide to mix it up, these types of tasks entirely. But, no matter which tasks you choose, make sure you're focusing on those tasks that should be done sooner rather than later. So in other words, at the end of the day, if you've accomplished at least 3 things, 3 important things, then you can start to see, hey, I've moved the needle. I've done something that's actually moved the needle today. Whereas if you try to focus on a lot of different things, juggle a lot of different balls, make a lot of different decisions without priorities, that's going to be really difficult. It's going to become a blur to you, and you're really not going to get a lot accomplished. So the next tip that I want to share with you is, seek to provide value in all that you do. There's a big difference between something that's done well versus something that's done poorly. Quality of work always speaks for itself, whether it's attention paid to detail, error or mistake free work, items that are, maybe sturdily constructed with top grade materials, or well thought out and complete ideas and concepts. Instead of dashing through our work to just get it done, I want to encourage you, think about how you can bring or enhance the value of your own work. Can you put in a little bit more of your time and energy to make your work stand out? There's no denying a job that's been well done. Personally, I would rather have a few things done right than have many things that require rework. And I tell this to my sons all the time. I'm like, look, if we agree that you're going to do something or you're going to work on something like mow the lawn or whatever that may be, don't half-ass it, okay? Because if you do, then you either have to go back and fix it or you leave it for someone else to have to fix. And so it just creates rework for somebody, whether it's you or somebody else. So again, that's an idea of just focusing on the value or the quality of the work that's being done. And I'm going to tell you, that's a hard thing to find today. There used to be something called quality of workmanship that people really used to take pride in workmanship. And that's hard. That's a hard trait to find today. And if you find that in someone, you ought to cherish it. The next tip that I want to share with you is we tend to get bogged down in the weeds and get tactical. So instead of focusing on life's little distractions or annoyances, I want to encourage you to take a step back and shift your focus to the long term. What goals would you like to achieve a month, a year, 5 years, or 10 years from now? Write down your goal or dream in specific, measurable details, including the date you want to reach your goal and how you will know when you reach your goal or dream, as well as the specific steps you'll take to reach it. Get detailed and laser focused on the how you're going to get there. Because if you'll take the time to do that and set that beside your desk or look at those, that's something that'll draw you back in and keep you laser focused. So make your plans. That's not to say that you can't alter your plans or adjust your plans, but it keeps you from getting distracted when you write those goals down, when you write those strategies down and take the time to step back and do that. The next one, the next tip I want to share with you is to have a clear vision. And that's where we were talking about earlier about carving out time, where David was talking about carving out time on his calendar just for a meeting with himself. Is your mind muddled with a lot of different ideas or projects or to-dos? The easiest way to get distracted is having too much information floating around in your head at one time. Get all those thoughts out of your head and onto a piece of paper or on a computer screen so that you can view them objectively. How many different thoughts or ideas do you have? Which items are the most time sensitive, require more time to complete? See if you can narrow down all your thoughts to one single vision you are willing to work towards starting right now. If you can sort of get them all down and if there's a clear vision that sort of comes out of that or pops out of that, then that'll sort of help you to focus as opposed to being scattered in various different directions. So identify that vision, take the time to be strategic and set a vision. What does that look like? This is more along the lines of accountability. I would say have a tight support group. Find yourself a tight support group to work with. Having a circle of people that hold you accountable for your goals, your dreams or daily tasks. It's a great way to remain focused on every aspect of your life. Can I ask if you don't have your phone on mute or your computer on mute, can I ask you to mute it because we're getting some background noise? Anyway, having this tight support group, it's a great way to focus on your life. This includes the important things. It also helps you to connect with the people that matter to you. I have a rule that I try to adhere to with the people that I let into what I call my inner circle. And I ask the question, do they make me happy or do they make me better? All right. That doesn't mean that I won't allocate time for other people, but it does help me to focus on with whom I will spend my time. Now, again, that's probably more along on the personal side. On the business side too, I kind of tend to be choosy about who I will say yes to and who I will say no to for certain things, and who I allow again to be a part of my support group or part of the group of people that I tend to hang out with. If my dad used to have a saying, son, if you lie down in the gutter, you're going to get fleas, or if you lie down with dogs, you're going to get fleas. There's a lot of truth in that. If you hang out with better people or people that add value and ask questions of you and hold you accountable and bring value, and you can offer and you're willing to share that value with them, there's just so much more value to associating with people like that. So again, have a tight support group, whether that's friends, business acquaintances, and so forth, but run them through a filter. Okay. Don't just allow anybody to be a part of that. All right. The next one is, you heard David mention this one earlier. Take time, block time out on your calendar to set aside some time for yourself. It's hard to know what to focus on if you're constantly in motion, running from one thing to another. Try taking some downtime just for yourself. That includes read a good book, watch the tide come in at the beach, go for a walk in the park, or just sit quietly at home. Spending some time alone, whether it's in your office or at home or whatever, can help you to put things in perspective. It's almost like a reboot for your brain. All right. Take that time, set it aside, block it out on your calendar to set aside that, give yourself permission to do that. Because if you don't, we're not being as effective as we really can be. Okay. We're cutting ourselves short. So these are just some tips that I use for myself. Recently I was sitting in a board meeting a few weeks ago in Ohio, and I overheard this very passionate quote from Ryan Yeoman. And he said, one of the things that he does in a meeting says, if you're not giving or receiving value from participating in a meeting, it's your responsibility to get the hell out of it. All right. You are a cost to the company. Stop costing the company money by being in a meeting where you're not adding or receiving value. I thought that was just pure gold. I adopted it. So, I liked it so much that I adopted something called a board of badassery, and on which I'm going to capture such spectacular pieces of wisdom like this. Again, I thought this one was gold. And I think it's the type of mindset that we should maybe consider adopting. There's so much time wasted in the quality of our engagements. So I'm going to recommend that we respect each other's time and ask what we are here to accomplish. And if you don't play a role, don't waste each other's time. Here's if you're looking for some additional resources on helping you to eliminate some of the noise and focus on what matters, you might try reading this book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. There's freedom in elimination of the non-essential and gaining clarity on what's truly important in both life and business. I encourage you to give it a read and call me. Call me to share what you've learned out of it or discuss it. Besides enjoying connecting with you, I guess I'm a little jaded in that I like to, to learn from others' perspectives as well. And that's one way, that I get new ideas and hearing from you and what nuggets you picked up along the way too. So if you haven't read this book, I would encourage you, go give it a read. It's a book about focus, helping you to focus on what's really important and gives a lot of good tips and tricks. Next, I want to invite you to our next current issues event. It's going to be April the 20th. It's called Protecting Your Company from Ransomware. We're going to have a discussion around this with what's going on today in the world. With unstable relations with China and Russia, we've probably never been more at risk from being hacked or having our business systems held for ransom. So I just want to encourage you to maybe join us for this next current issues event. And so before I break away here, I just thought I would reconnect with everybody here and just see if anybody had any other comments that you might want to add to this discussion today, or any questions. Okay, well, guys, ladies, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope you found this to be helpful. We are recording this, and if you want to revisit this, it will be made available to you. And anyway, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule today to discuss this. I hope you have learned a few tips and tricks along the way. And listen, we'll see some of you very soon. Some of you will see as early as next week. So safe travels and have a great rest of the week. And we'll see you soon. And in the meantime, if I can ever help you or Robin can ever help you, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We always love hearing from you. Take care.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.